We have an AI that can see, can hear, can reason. He and I would work together well, was really around ethics, values, work practices. And that for me, that counts for a lot. I think those models are dying.
Kirk-Dale, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Antoine. Pleasure.
KPMG, IBM, you've had a great corporate career, and then you decided to start your own business. Why was it the right time?
So I think it was kind of a combination of things. I remember when I was in IBM, my last couple of years in IBM, I said to my team, we have there's a real indictment on the firm because we have an AI that can see, can hear, can reason, not to the extent of the LLMs and the agents that we have today, but we failed to come up with a killer app. And it kind of struck me that, we're at a point now where there's so much available to entrepreneurs. Uh, Most of our costs nowadays are OpEx, you pay as you go. Um, it really is, I think, a great time to be starting a business. The barriers to entry are lower than ever and are getting increasingly low with the advent of AI. So I kind of felt in 2019 that it was now or never. I've been in consulting since the mid 90s, kind of doing the same thing over and over again. I'd done the big four partner thing. I'd done the big American tech firm thing, um, done the UK corporation thing, and I'd never done a startup. So I thought, let me try it and put my hand in the fire and see how it goes.
Did you consider it earlier in your career? Like this was probably a path, like you wanted to own your own company eventually? Or did just the stars align and you were like, you know what? I have all the tools, I have the knowledge. Let me give it a
Yeah.
shot.
So I don't think you ever kind of anyone who thinks that they have all the knowledge probably, yeah, is incredibly misguided. I had a entrepreneurial stint in my early career. Um, I started a consulting firm with a bunch of guys in London. Um, so we ran a consulting firm for about 5 years in London. But that's a different type of business because that's, selling human, capital, selling yourself. What we are, what I'm trying to do now is selling a concept, selling an idea, and it's a much wider vision. So I don't view starting, consulting firms as entrepreneurial in the same sense as, starting a tech firm where the leverage models are different, where the nature of the problem that you're trying to solve is different. So, this particular venture I viewed in a completely different way to starting a consulting firm, which is what I did, 20 odd years ago.
So someone who starts doing solo consulting, you wouldn't see that as entrepreneurship.
See, I think that I know that sounds like a harsh statement, but I think there's a scale of entrepreneurship which is solving big problems. And I've worked as a consultant, and but I've spent 25 years of my career solving clients' problems. They are very really Those solutions are very really scalable, that you can repeat them, but there's a reason why consulting firms have lower valuation multipliers than tech firms. There's a reason why Accenture, for example, and IBM have a higher valuation than a pure services firm, because software inherently has an element of repeatability and scale that manpower just doesn't have. So yes, linguistically, yes, of course, it's entrepreneurial, linguistically, and it is a leap of faith to go out there and start your own, manpower firm to sell yourself. But I think the bigger challenge is actually making it repeatable. So that's actually one of the things in our firm. So Boonio, we are a marketplace for professional services, and our target market are small to medium professional services firms. And one of the things that we offer in Boonio is something that we call service offerings. And these are bite-sized, repeatable packages of work. So what we're trying to effectively do is make services to some extent into software so that service firms can kind of create a package that they can sell over and over again without the need to reinvent, these services over and over again, and without the need to constantly deploy them. And that gives them a bit of that leverage that a lot of these tech startups have. So I would view, if you're coming to the services business with a view on building scale, repeatable service offerings, then that is entrepreneurial. But if you're coming to the services business with an idea that you're going to sell yourself an hourly rate, I think those models, especially with AI, I think those models are dying. I think that we're going to see increasing focus on professional services businesses having to innovate a lot more and come up with repeatable, customizable, more action-oriented solutions than paper deliverables.
Yeah, it's impossible to scale beyond your 24 hours in a day. If you're selling your
Exactly.
time, then at some point, the best you can do is increase the cost per hour. But that's about it.
Exactly.
You won't be able
Exactly.
to get 1,000, a million clients. So before we jump deeper into the company, I want to ask, you're the co-founder.
Yeah.
So you have a partner.
I have a partner. So we met together in IBM years and years ago in 2019. Well, actually, we met in 2017, 2018, but we founded the business in 2019.
Okay. So my question is, how did you know that this was the right person to work with? Is it because you had some previous tech experiences with him, so you know he has certain abilities, or was there like some kind of relationship beyond the tech,
Yeah,
someone you can trust, someone you can grow with?
I think that's a really, really good question. I think a co-founder is someone that you have to really be able to vibe with, that you have to be able to bounce ideas off of and kind of problem solve with. We really both understand the kind of thinking patterns of each other, which can be a little bit dangerous, I guess, sometimes when you get too kind of mature in the relationship. What you don't want to do is develop, big group think into whatever you're doing. But the decision for me early on, that he and I would work together well, was really around ethics, values, work practices. And that, for me, that counts for a lot. You mentioned the word trust. I think a lot of the decision to go into partnership has to be based upon trust. If you don't trust one another, if capability, obviously that's a given. But if trust isn't there, then you don't have a sound business relationship.
Yeah, because I asked this because one of the main reasons why companies fail, and we
Yeah.
see this all the time, is they have different visions and they realize this a couple of years down the line when there are so many assets, there's a lot of money
Mm.
involved, and sometimes it get nasty.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that in our consulting firm in the early 2000s. What was interesting was that some of the partners in the firm wanted to take the risk and grow, and some of the partners didn't want to, invest or take out debt in order to grow the business. And that essentially led to the death of the business because the partners couldn't come together with a consistent view of, you know, of how to approach the business. I don't think that would be the case here because I think we've structured kind of ourselves in a way that I think our visions very much align. And also there's only two of us. That counts for a lot as well. I think the bigger the number, the more chance for friction.
Yeah, I mean, one could argue that
Mm,
50-50 is more dangerous than having three people where two can agree and then
that's true. But that's why trust is important. And we both kind of, it's interesting. We had a disagreement recently on a particular thing, um, and a particular aspect of the functionality of our platform. Um, and I trust him to make decisions. He trusts me to make decisions. And sometimes we do make decisions that, that we suspect the other one wouldn't necessarily approve of. But that if we feel strongly about it, we still go ahead with it. And I think that you have to approach a lot of these businesses in an experimental way. So as long as both parties are willing to kind of give each other experimental leeway, then I think it's fine. I think it's dangerous when you don't give that experimental leeway. So 50-50, yes, that's true, but there's enough experimental leeway that we both have in the working relationship.
I want to jump into the business.
Yeah,
Sourcing services easier than ever.
yeah.
How does it work?
So, so we're kind of like Fiverr, but for B2B. So the problem, there are a couple of problems that we're trying to solve. The first problem that we're trying to solve is discovery. And this kind of harkens back to my early days in services. And I'm sure you would resonate with this. There are a lot of great firms out there that simply just don't get picked up. You'll never hear about, you know, um, niche consulting firms that have great talent but sit in a city other than yours, or just don't have the marketing budget of the big consulting companies. I'll give you an example. One of our clients is looking to set up a business in the food industry, and they asked us to source for them consulting firms that specialize in the end-to-end formulation of recipes. So not just doing the strategy, but coming up with the strategy, the formulations, the supply chain, the branding, the entire life cycle. And there are a handful of firms in the world that specialize in that. And that's an incredibly niche area, but incredibly valuable as well. If you want to start a restaurant business or some kind of business in food and drink, then that end-to-end service is significantly more valuable than going to I won't name any of the firms, but going to a boutique or a kind of a traditional consulting firm that will give you a piece of paper but without the package. So what we're trying to do is bring to light niche firms that have exactly the kind of um, skills, capabilities, and allow them to be discovered. So I think the first pillar of our business is around discovery. Now, the second thing that we're trying to address as a business is making it easier for businesses to identify their requirements. And we use AI for this. So AI is a perfect vehicle for this. So we use an LLM for drafting RFPs and drafting proposals. We have a really nice aspect of the functionality on our platform, which is that the LLM actually comes up with all of your KPIs as well. So our platform covers the entire life cycle from sourcing all the way through to project delivery and then benefits realization. So we actually go back at the end of the life cycle and validate that you've actually received these business benefits as well. So one of the problem statements that we're trying to really address is helping clients make sure that they actually realize the benefits and the value that they set out to achieve when they started on the project or started engaging with the consultants. So we've got discovery, helping these firms get found, and helping clients define their requirements. One of the great things about this is that better defined requirements actually reduces delivery risk. It sounds like an obvious statement, but you significantly reduce the risk of missed expectations if you are more aligned in what the requirements are. And that comes to kind of the third pillar, which is probably one of the most important, which is that we process all our payments via escrow. So we've partnered with a company in Singapore that processes has a great API service, and when both parties acknowledge that a service has been realized, then the payments are released. So we kind of cover the entire life cycle. In a nutshell, that's kind of the core of Boonio. We've got 10,000 vendor profiles loaded onto the platform. So you can, send your business requirements off to circa 10,000 companies and engage with them.
Okay, well, so many questions. First of
Please.
all these different companies, how do you make sure, because since they're smaller companies, they probably
Yeah,
don't have much of a track record online
yeah,
or a
yeah.
digital footprint. How do you make sure that these are real and can actually provide the services?
So I, I think that's a good question, and it's a tough one because in the long run, so we have a review and rating system baked into the platform. So in the
Okay.
long run, it's a problem that will solve itself as kind of we get the flywheel into motion and things start moving. So in the long run, it's not a problem. In the short run, we're doing doing that YC, that YC advice, do the things that don't scale. So we're managing the sourcing process and kind of helping our initial clients engage with these clients and kind of handhold them through the process a lot more. We're a relatively young startup. So, we started working on this platform a couple of years ago. Although we founded our legal entity in 2019, we started working on Boonio only in the last couple of years. And so relatively new. And the worry or the risk that you're identifying, I think, is in that middle phase when we're trying to scale, but we as yet don't have the mass of data that will allow customers to make some of those informed decisions. But you're absolutely right. That's something that is a risk. One way around it would be that we offer sourcing services as a premium service. So kind of if you want to go with the standard vanilla kind of service, then you can just buy from anyone on the platform. But if you want to have us kind of handhold you through the process, we can kind of manage the sourcing for you.
I guess the rating system makes a lot of sense because if you want to scale, and you mentioned 10,000 companies, you
Yeah,
can't go on one by one. If companies employ new people, if they
yeah,
change their vision, you can't do that. So it's better to let the market regulate itself. So I want to ask you about the requirements because as
yeah,
someone who's technical, I know very well that if the requirements are not clear,
yeah.
down the line, this is going to be a mess because you'll never know if the project is done, if what are the success criteria. So let's say that you have those requirements and the company is now looking for a provider. How does this process happen? Do you have like people who bid for the company? Are
So
you joining them?
So we have a matching algorithm that actually matches together your requirement. So we have a vectorization database of all of these, to get technical, of all of these company profiles. And then that allows us to match together business requirements in an RFI or RFP with the profile of a particular consulting firm. So we get the top K consulting firms that match, and then you can send off that RFI or RFP to those firms. So there's an element of that in there that kind of helps streamline that whole process. But you're absolutely right. The business requirement took us, or the kind of streamlining that whole business requirement process took us months to get right. And there was a lot of prompt engineering and testing and refining that went in to training our LLM so that it could handle most business requirements. So at the moment, the way that it works pretty well. If you, for example, if you go on and say you have an interest in digital transformation, you download a BCG article on digital transformation, say, just any old PDF, and you feed that PDF in, the system will kind of know what you're looking for and create an RFP out of that, pull out the salient points from that, create the RFP, identify your project milestones, or identify the resources that you need, the amount of time that those resources will need to spend, or the length of each milestone, and also identify the kind of the strategic KPIs that ultimately measure success. So we have a few different processes in the LLM that kind of step through this to kind of refine that business requirement, then refine the milestones, and then finally get to the point where you've got a refined set of strategic outcomes that you're looking for.
Are you focused on a specific industry? You mentioned FMB, but I guess
Yeah.
any kind of business can have any kind of service. So are you focused on
Yeah.
something or just open market?
So we've gone open market, and the reason that we've gone open market is really because the problems that many clients are looking to solve need open market solutions. I'll give you an example. You could be looking for a financial due diligence consultant. So that means that you probably want you're a small business and you're looking to do some kind of a small acquisition. So you want someone who has finance experience to kind of handhold you through the acquisition of, say, another tech company. But then you also need technology skills. So, technology, and you also need legal skills. So, a lot of the services that customers in our experience that customers are looking for kind of bring together several different skill sets. And it's although it's tempting to say, and we've had this feedback, and it's very tempting to say we will focus on management consulting, for example, we will focus on accounting or law. The problem there is simply that they're increasingly business problems that become very, very nested and kind of complex. And one of the things that our platform does, it actually it allows you to collaborate in real time, kind of like a WhatsApp interface, allows you to collaborate in real time across organizational boundaries. So you can contact the procurement arm of an accounting firm or the sales arm of an accounting firm and the sales arm of a tech firm. And you can create like a chat group, a consortium of all of those firms and discuss your requirements in real time with them. So you can kind of collaborate between organizations. And we think that that's an important aspect of solving this business problem. And another great example, harkens back to my days in IBM. What you saw in the last few years in consulting, you've got design, consulting, strategy, technology, data. All of these things are kind of coming together at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Problems are kind of merging, and so you need to have access to a broad base of talent. And that's the reason that we've taken an open approach to it. And you can, of course, search and filter and find exactly what you're looking for. So what we're thinking in the future is that we'll have Boonio.com/accounting or Boonio.com/legal. And you'll be able to, or /consulting, and you'll be able to zero in. But what we don't want to lose is that broad base of advice. And that's why we kind of refer to ourselves as professional services rather than consulting.
And you also don't know. I mean, you
Yeah,
don't know how the markets in which direction is going to go. Maybe
absolutely.
your platform is going to be great in an industry that you haven't really thought
Absolutely.
about as right. Like if you niche down to like something, but it would have worked with something else, then why limit yourself? I mean, you're getting started. You can always pivot to something later, but right now, I
Exactly.
think having an open marketplace makes a lot of sense. Um, so I think it's a great idea. I think you have a marketplace, you have a third party that will ensure that both of the parties got the job done. So they got the job
Yep.
done, they get paid. It's kind of like a full circle.
Yep.
And is your vision to be as hands off as possible and just let the company, you know, live and grow by itself? Or do you nowadays have to intervene in different transactions? Or is it just like working on it by itself?
No, so we definitely intervene, and we're as I said, we're at an early stage in our growth. So intervening is what we ought to be doing right now. So definitely intervening is where we are. Now, long term, I see kind of different layers to the way that we would organize our services. On the one hand, I think that there is a base layer, kind of like a free tier, where the business kind of runs itself. And then there's kind of a white glove layer where we do a lot more hands-on sourcing, procurement, delivery excellence type work. Uh, and I think that those different business models can reside in the same company, but I think we have to be careful not to kind of not to become too kind of focused on repeatable and scalable business and neglecting quality, or focus on quality and neglecting scale. So I think we have to get that balance right. And there's a point that you made earlier. You used the word pivot, and my co-founder and I, we actually came up with a play on the word MVP. We refer to our early release as the minimum pivotable product. So what we try to do, um, so MPP, what we try to do is develop as much as we can that will allow us in such a way that we could take the business in multiple directions. So not just develop the minimum viable, but develop a product and an architecture that will allow us to kind of pivot, as you say. And one aspect of pivoting is, perhaps we'll take the business down the route of being a very white glove premier service. And the alternative, maybe we'll go somewhere in the middle. I don't think that it'll ever be entirely 100% automated without any human involvement.
So I think this is fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate your time.
Not at all. My pleasure.